Moi everyone and welcome to Finish Your Plate. When I was in Finland, I bought some of this Viili, which I found to be really excellent. And it turns out that there's really a big difference between different Viilis. This Viili that I bought specifically was great because it has that thick cream top to it. So I went ahead and I brought over a jar of it so I could try to make my own cream top Viili. So join me and I'll show you how to make a really classic old-time fashioned Finnish Viili. I have here 8 of these small cups. These are 1.5 deciliters in size. I have 8 of them, so total that is 1.2 liters. So also what I'm gonna do is, since getting non-homogenized milk is a little bit of a problem, you just can't find it easily at least. So I'm gonna approximate it by mixing some low-fat milk and then heavy whipping cream. So let's measure out a liter of milk. You could also use skim milk here. And turn the heat on, medium-low. And while that's warming up, I'm going to measure 2 deciliters of heavy cream. And pour it in here too. So we're not going to boil this milk, we're just going to gently scald the milk, which means that we're going to heat it up to 82 Celsius, about 185 Fahrenheit. And then we're going to turn off the heat and then let it cool down to about room temperature before we're going to add the milk cultures. So what the scalding does is it'll pasteurize the milk, it'll remove any kind of bacteria. Of course, the milk is already pasteurized, so that's not that big of a deal. But also what it does, it denatures the proteins in the milk, so that's going to affect the ending texture of the end product. I'm just going to gently stir it so it doesn't burn on the bottom. However, I found out with these induction heaters, the burning is much less of a problem than it is with, say, a gas cooktop, for example. All right, so now we reached our target temperature, 82 Celsius. So I'm going to turn off the heat and take the milk off the heat. And we're going to let this cool down until it's room temperature again before we're going to mix in the Viili starter. Okay, now the milk has cooled to pretty much body temperature, which is fine. Just going to mix it up a little and take the temperature again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix in about a tablespoon of this Viili that I have from Finland. Making sure that I also get some of this top part in there. The top part is important. There's 2 things that happen in Viili. First of all, there's the lactic acid or the lactic bacteria that will ferment the actual milk. But on top of that, on top of the Viili, you get the very thick crust kind of a layer, which I find very delicious. So I want to make sure that I get a very thick crust on top of my Viili. Now we'll just mix it all in, make sure it's all dissolved in here. Unlike yogurt, Viili does not need to be kept warm in order to ferment. It will ferment at room temperature overnight because it's a different type of bacteria than that ferments yogurt. Now I'm going to portion this into my little containers here. Looks like I only got 7 containers, so maybe I miscalculated, but that's all right. We're just going to put the lid on, and we're going to wipe these clean and then leave them on the counter to ferment overnight. All right, so the Viili has been out on the counter overnight and then in the fridge for about 2 hours. Here's the result. Looks like it actually got very thick, which is great. However, I don't really see that real cream top layer here. There's a little bit, but maybe not quite as much as I would have wanted to. One of my coworkers suggested that the reason is because in homogenized milk and cream, the fat globules they've already been broken down so much that when I mix it, it's going to mix in anyway. The cream's going to mix in with the milk anyway, regardless. So what he suggested is combining them with absolute minimum mixing. So I thought what I'll do is I'll try to do this again, and I will actually heat up the milk and the cream separately and then inoculate it with the Viili culture and then pour the cream very carefully on top of the milk to avoid all that mixing. Hopefully this way I will get the real thick cream top layer. So let's try it out. I'm going to be using one of these old fire yogurt containers this time, so to maximize the surface area. And I just measured this is a 500 milliliter container. So let's do maybe 300 milliliters of milk and then 200 of cream. Otherwise, we're still going to follow the same thing. We're going to scald the milk and then let it cool down until it's room temperature. Then mix in the Viili starter to both of them separately. And then last, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour them into this container and do it with as little mixing as possible. And I still have the same starter as I used yesterday. So now we'll wait for these two to cool down to about body temperature, after which I'm gonna inoculate it with some of the Viili starter, and then I'm gonna pour in the cream carefully on top of the milk to reduce mixing. Okay, so now I'm just gonna pour the cream over the milk. And we'll put the lid on, and we're gonna let this sit on the counter overnight. Now my Viili has been sitting on the countertop for about 16 hours, and then it's been in the fridge about 4 hours. So what's notable is that with good Viili, you get this crust on top, this thick velvety surface, and that's the really mark of a good Viili, and that's the delicious, really delicious part of Viili, and most often prized part of Viili. So let's dig into it and let's see what it looks like. Yes, now you can see that distinction between the crust and the bottom, the cream top, if you will. And let's do a Viili pull. And we have that ropey texture too. That is really mark of a good Viili. Let's taste this. It's very slightly sour, not too much. Let's taste the cream top. That is truly the best part of Viili, the cream top. Many times people like to have Viili just with some cinnamon and sugar, or sometimes with talkkuna, which is a Finnish flour product made with dried peas, for example, some oats, some other cereal. So what you do is you just take a little bit of talkkunajauho, which looks like this, and you mix it with Viili, and you just mix, mix, mix. And then you enjoy it with your Viili. The talkkunajauho has a roasted kind of flavor, kind of like malt, a little bit malty, even though there's no malt in it, but it has roasted flour for sure. And it gives us a little bit of texture to your Viili as well. So, if you want to make your own Viili, you can order the culture online. You can bring it to, it is very easy to make once you master a couple of different tricks. Definitely if you like yogurt, fermented milk products, go ahead and try Viili. It's a truly unique Finnish milk product. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Finish Your Plate.